Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Pros and cons of the pen press versus press with equal range of motion. I can set the safety straps in my rack so the bar is just barely above my collarbone. Mainly I'm just tired of my collarbone getting scraped up, but I'm wondering if the losing/gaining anything by doing this. Why are you doing full range of motion pen presses with the press? I don't understand at all. The benefit of a pen press, you already can press from a dead stop by resting the bar on your chest. And I understand there's accessory benefits to pen presses in some cases for the bench press. But when you're dealing with a press, most of the benefit of a pen press comes with the ability to place the bar into a partial as a training tool, right? It's a training tool to teach you a better bar path. That bar path where you transition when you shift your head forward, finding that sweet spot with a heavy weight is the reason you would do a pen press as a partial. It's not because it's going to make you stronger or gain more muscle than the normal exercise. It's because it's a training tool to teach you the most efficient bar path to lift the most weight, right? Because there is a transition spot when you're doing the press. And for those who don't understand the press, we're talking about the standing barbell press. As far as doing a pen press off the bottom, just touch your chest. In fact, it's easier to set up. You just walk up, unrack the bar and walk it out, do your presses and step back in. It's already a dead stop exercise, right? This is an exercise that already starts from the bottom. Unlike why you would do a pen press on a bench press to reverse it, right? You're reversing it so that you can start at the bottom. Start with a concentric and end with an eccentric like a deadlift. The press is already a potential dead stop exercise, right? It's already a dead stop exercise. There's no purpose at all of doing a pen press the way that you're doing it other than to add complexity. I would say just drop doing that. Unless you're doing it to train a better bar path by finding that transition point and pressing from there, I don't see the point at all. You're already doing a dead stop exercise. Unrack it on your chest, or when you lay back, it touches your chest, and press it up. Be done with it. Don't make this more complex than it needs to be without a benefit. Alright, next question. Alright guys, I apologize. I do not have the file for this, so I'm just going to read it and it'll be down below. Hey Jason, why do I tend to stall on my lifts, especially pressing such as overhead press, when I grind too much? It can't be my CNS that's fatigued because all my other lifts are fine, and I don't think it's the muscles that's not recovered yet, or is it? Also, if my overhead press stalls, my bench press isn't necessarily affected, so it isn't very lift specific. Why is that? If I'm back down and trying with good form again, I start progressing again. Thanks, coach. Well, it has to do with peripheral nervous system fatigue, muscle fatigue, everything else, brother. And because the ratios are different of chest, tricep, delt, and everything on like the press versus the bench press, no, it can still be more localized fatigue. The reason is because grinding doesn't produce more muscle growth. In other words, getting one rep from failure versus failure or having to grind in the data out there doesn't seem to produce any more muscle growth, but it does affect your recovery inroads. So if you're eating into your recovery with a training aspect or a training stimulus that isn't stimulating more growth, you do tend to stall easier, or you're forced to rest longer between training. So if you're going to grind more, you actually have to space your training sessions out more, which is one reason in a lot of cases it isn't ideal. Grinding has its benefits in training you for competitive lifting, for competition, right? So that's what's going on there. That's why there's certain reasons why you would want to learn to grind, but in your training itself, it's not always beneficial, and it can cause stalls. So that's really what's going on. It's just a stimulation versus fatigue and recovery issue. All right, next question. Hey coach, I've fallen off the wagon for the last year or so with training. As I start to get back into the rhythm of things again, I was debating what schedule I should take up. I know a 3-day full body is generally best, but if a 6-day-a-week schedule works better for me job-wise, would you think it's okay to start with that again? For context, I was an intermediate lifter who had ran Bulgarian lite before. Cheers. You have experience with Bulgarian lite. If you think you could do the Bulgarian lite again and you think you would stick it out, go ahead, but you need to make sure that that's also not part of the reason you fell off the wagon. Bulgarian lite style training is not for everyone. It is absolutely not for everyone, and so you need to think that through. If you think that's one of the reasons you burned out and quit and it wasn't life circumstances that got in the way, I'm going to say just go to full body 3 days a week. If it was external circumstances and you don't feel that style of training burned you out, I think it can be an amazing training style for people who are psychologically suited for it. So that's what it comes down to. Are you psychologically suited for that? So you need to weigh those things out. I think both systems work amazingly well in the right environment, right? I think they're both two of the best systems you can run, in my opinion, as far as organizations that either run full body 3 days a week or Bulgarian light style training. Just from a programming perspective, I think those are the two best potential choices. But it is going to depend upon your individual psychology. So that's the question you have to ask yourself before, as someone who fell off the wagon. What was the reason why you fell off the wagon, and do you think you could stick out Bulgarian light again? If that's in question at all, in question, then do full body 3 days a week. All right, next question. Jason, during heavy 3x5 sets on some exercises, mostly squat and strict press, I find it hard to get enough air in while inhaling on the last 2 reps. Is there any way to correct this, or should I go see a doctor? I've been told years ago that my nostrils are too tight and crooked, but they pretty much tell that to everyone, so they get plastic surgery. You could have a deviated septum, which I have, which can make breathing difficult. Here's what I'm going to say. As someone who's doing 3x5 on squats right now, and I do 5 rep sets on the press, if you're dealing with getting enough air, it's not just your nose. You take big inhales in your mouth. What you need to do on every single rep, you need to take a deep breath between reps. The beauty is that you're not doing silly constant tension type training. On a squat, you can pause at the top. You can take 2 seconds to re-get your breath, 3 seconds to re-get your breath before the last 2 reps. Reach up and open your mouth and get a set of full lungs full of air. Inhale, get that air, and then do your rep. It's the same thing on the press. On the press, you have the bar there, and then when you do that layback, you can take a deep breath just as you're going into the layback on each rep, right? You can do that. It's perfectly fine. The only time this becomes a problem is if you're trying to do some sort of really silly ass constant tension training, which isn't based on any science. It isn't based on anything in reality other than silly bodybuilder myths. So you're not having to do that style of training. Take your breaths between reps. Don't just use your nose, use your mouth. Get a deep breath, right? Get full lungs before every rep. That's what you should be doing all the time anyways. So go for it, man. But as far as a deviated septum or something like that, I have the same thing. I understand. I might probably need to eventually get surgery for it, but I don't want to dish out the cash or go through a surgery at this point in my life if I don't have to. So I get it, man. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, you talk about 3 exercises not being enough exercise variety for full body 3 days a week. What would be wrong with squat, bench, deadlifts, weighted chins, hand grips, and accessories? If there's enough volume on all training days, 3 to 5 sets of 5 to 8 reps for an intermediate/advanced lifter, could you eventually get to maximum size and strength? Thanks, coach. Yeah, I know. I think that combination would work. I think that would work. And again, a little bit of accessory work. Is needed. But as far as those 4 exercises together, yeah, I think it will work. I will say, though, with weighted chins and all that, as being enough volume with weighted chins, I think that puts a lot of stress on the bicep connective tissue. Just been my experience with that. So maybe some pull-ups in there instead sometimes. But as far as your actual exercise selection, particularly with some grip training and everything, yeah, you can get maximum size with that. But you're going to need a fair amount of volume, and you're going to need, a lot of time put in. But here's what I would say. That would work for building your base, but don't be afraid of adding an extra exercise or 2. Like you said, some accessory work. Don't be afraid of a little bit of accessory work. What I tell people, though, is that accessory work isn't always necessary. It is overrated. And there's more than one school of thought on that, and we can argue about that all day long, but both schools of thought have produced world record holders. Both schools of thought have produced monstrously big and strong men. So to say that one is right or not isn't necessarily true. I just feel, again, accessories are overrated. It's just a different way to do things. It's not a necessary way to do things. It's just an alternative method that's become popular due to things like West Side Barbell and other aspects of the strength culture. But no, there's no reason you can't build extremely large amounts of size off those 4 exercises, particularly with a little extra grip work and accessory work. Yeah, you can get really big, real big doing those, as long as volume, tension, workload, and everything are high enough and consistent enough. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.